What's up? We back. We back. Hey, listen, we took a little hiatus, but we back. We're gonna get back into this credit. So what we're gonna do is a little more textbook this time. This time around, we're doing it a little more textbook. So today we're gonna talk a little bit about credit, how it was created, etc. Now you might be like, I don't care why that was created, but it's a common saying most of us say. You don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. So we got to know where credit come from in order for us to build good credit, right? So let's jump right into it, y'all. Let's go. All right, so check it out. So we got credit scores and regulations, right? So in 1950, you had Bill and Earl. That already sound like some country names, Bill and Earl. So they actually came up with the algorithm that creates what we know as the Fico score today. All right, that was created back in 1950. Had an algorithm they sold to the banks. Banks bought it. It helped the banks to be able to determine who to lend to. It's back in the wild, wild west, the way they did business was based off word of mouth. It was based on the name you had in the streets. That's what it was based on. So somebody that could be a crook could give you a good name. You could have somebody that had a good relationship with somebody else, but because they knew a crook, they gave that crook a good name, and that crook had access to money to do whatever with, right? So that's how it was in the Wild Wild West, but now it's a little bit more civilized, and that's done through the FICO. So FICO, in case y'all didn't know, comes from Bill and Earl. That's where FICO come from, y'all. Bill and Earl back in the 1950s. And then in 1970, that's when they passed the FCRA, as y'all can see there. That's the Fair Credit Reporting Act. That's what we use today in order to make sure that y'all credit reports is looking crystal clean. You know what I'm saying? Looking top tier, looking like it's ready to go ahead and get you a couple acres or something, start a business. That's what that's about. Y'all understand? So that's the foundation of where your today's credit scores actually even come from, right? Now, when we look at the history of the credit bureaus, you see here, we had a guy named, we had Cater and Guy Wolford in 1899. This was a whole 60 years before Bill and Earl even came around. And so Equifax been around for a good couple hundred years now. Well, let me see. Over 100 years. We'll say that to be safe. It's been around over 100 years. And this is what they did in order to build a to build a portfolio of how a person's character was when it came to borrowing and paying back money. Because again, back in the Wild Wild West, y'all seen them country movies where people just come into a bank, they and they just do what it did, So back then it was really the Wild Wild West with who was borrowing and who was using money for what. That's why a lot of crooks actually ended up getting super rich. You see it in a lot of these movies a lot of times. So that's why we got Equifax, who came around in 1899 to build a portfolio based around what your character was when it came to borrowing and paying back money. Right, so that's what that's essentially where that came from without dragging that out for y'all, right? So as y'all know, why is credit important? So let's talk about it, right? Credit is important because it's going to get you more money with less payback. So the money that you get is going to cost you less, if that makes sense. The money you get will cost you less, right? So again, let's do the math right here, right? You borrow 200 grand to buy the house of your dreams, especially in today's time. 6% interest rates, 7% interest rates, right? You qualify for a home loan at 4% interest rate, paid off over a 30-year period. That's like a FHA loan. That's why you got to get your credit up, y'all. Get your credit up so that you're not stuck on FHA loans. You can actually go get a conventional loan, pay it back in 15 years, decent interest rate. You ain't spending a third of your life, for some of us, half of our life, paying off a house, right? That just give us a bunch of problems. Those of y'all that own homes, y'all know what I'm talking about. You always got to fix something, right? So you borrow at $200,000, home loan, 4% interest rate, pay it back over a 30-year period, you end up paying back about $143,000 in interest on a 4% interest rate. $143,000. That's because that's on a 30-year payback, right? Now, if your credit score is actually lower, the best rate you can get is about a 5%. Today is higher today. So with the lower credit score, you'll end up paying back an extra 43 grand, which puts you at $186,000. Now that's 43 grand you could have either held on to, again, started a business, sent your kids off to school, right? There's a lot of things you could have did with that to put some equity into your future generations. But because you didn't invest the time and money into building out your credit, well, you end up giving that money into a home that you may or may not even finish paying off, right? Hopefully you do, but in some cases, a lot of people don't finish paying it off. So that's the importance of having good credit. You just pay less. The money costs you less, if that makes sense. That sounds like a tongue twister. The money costs you less. The things that cost you money. So the money costs you less when you borrow it, all right? You pay back less money based on what you borrowed to begin with, right? So let's jump into it. What is FICO? All right, so I already told y'all. You had Earl and Bill. They created it. So FICO, Fair, Isaac, and Company. That is where FICO comes from. Fair, F, Isaac, is the I, and the company. They got it kind of backwards, but you get it. It's to make it, because you can't put FIACR. My bad, y'all. You can't put FIAR. That don't make a word. So it's Fair, Isaac, and Company is where it comes from for your reporting. All right. So every time you actually go out and you apply for the loan, essentially what it's doing is these three things here. Okay. So the FICO is, again, an algorithm that's going to look at your credit report, and based on what you got on it, it's like Google, right? It's going to crawl that all that data, and it puts it together. It uses math and puts it together to build an equation, and that's how you get your FICO. Remember, there's different types of FICOs. These people, they make a lot of money. I mean, you got FICO 1 through 9, depending on who you go through. That determines. That's why you can go through different lenders, and sometimes, a mortgage credit score can be different from another credit score. So all credit ain't equal, right? Depends on what factors and data points they're looking at. So the number of times you request credit, number of accounts you open and close, your payment history, the amount of credit debt you have, total amount of credit available to you. All right, we're going to get into that a little bit more. That's going into the five, what I call the 5 pillars of building credit, right? We're going to talk about that in just a second. Now, how is your credit score determined? Let's talk about the 5 pillars of actually building credit. Most of y'all know this already. So you got your on-time payments, okay? So as you can see here, 35%, let me move this up here. Okay, there we go. So 35% of your FICO score is determined by your payment history. So it's good to be able to make payments on time. I mean, people love people that pay on time. Like, if you was to lend me money and I said I was going to pay you back over a year, you would love when I paid you back on the days I said I would pay you back. Here's the problem with that. Because a lot of us have on-time payments, but we got a 500 credit score or a low 600, and we can't figure out why. So imagine you lent money to me. You lent me $5,000, and I got to pay you back, say $400 over 12 months to pay you back your $5,000, right? Or 400 and change, whatever it comes out to. That brings us to step number 2 right here. 30% of your FICO is determined by the amount you owe compared to the amount of credit you have available. So if you're somebody that extend $5,000 worth of credit, hey, come to me whenever you need it. I got you. I'll give you your $5,000. Just come to me. I got you. You like my personal bank. And I come to you and I say, hey, man, Let me get that full 5,000. I'm gonna need that. I gotta take care of some stuff around the house. Got some bills I gotta catch up on. You like, no problem. I got you. You give it to me. Problem with that is, even though I might have on-time payment history, if I'm only paying you back $20 a month, which is like your minimum payments, most of us have minimum payments that are 20, 30, 40 bucks. That's for a reason. One, you never pay the balance down, especially when you have compounded interest. So you kind of on a hamster wheel. But the reason that nobody really wants to deal with that is because you, just like me, you want to get your money back as fast as possible. If I lend you $5,000 and you gave me back $5,000 in 30 days, I'm gonna be like, hey, you want 10? Especially if you put an interest on it. You want 10? But if I gave you 5 and you paying me back $20 a month, that's gonna take you well over 10 years to pay me back. Well over 10 years to pay me back at $20 a month. So me being paid back slow, yes, I'm being paid, but I'm being paid back slow. Nobody likes being paid back slow. So that's why most of us have low scores with a perfect payment history. It's because we actually aren't paying enough. Disposable income ain't high enough. That brings us to point number 3. 15% is the length of your credit history. Why is that important? Because what it shows is you actually have commitment, right? Who likes commitment? We all like commitment. We like loyalty. You like loyal friends, loyal spouses, loyal employees or employers, whether you're a business owner or not. Loyalty, that's really what that's talking about. Length of credit history. Are you willing to keep this car open where you're willing to build a relationship with this bank over time? You're willing to continue to borrow from them and pay them back. And that's important because some people, I'm sure it's happened to some of us, you open up your credit card, you pay it down, and you say, ha ha ha, I got them. I'm going to let it sit. So it can report every month I have a zero balance and I never got to pay anything back. Well, guess what? Trick's on you, because that's why sometimes your card will close and you like, I don't know why my card closed. Like, I didn't owe nothing. That's the point. Credit card companies stay in business by you owing money, right? I make no money if I'm somebody that's trying to be a bank to you and you never borrow from me so I can make some money on the interest. We ain't got no relationship. What's the point of what we doing? Talk like what the banks are saying is, come to me when you're ready to talk about some business. When you're ready to run up a bag and pay me a little interest, then we'll talk. Until then, I'm gonna shut your card down. That's what number 3 is talking about. Length of credit history, loyalty, doing what it takes to build out a relationship with the bank where you will borrow and continue to pay them back on time. Showing good character, right? Like Earl and Bill wanted back in the 1950s. So number 4, right? That's the number of new accounts. So what this is showing is you're constantly out there and you're building relationships. You're maintaining old relationships, building out, extending your credit limits, borrowing, paying it back. This is where you start to get into really good finances with like how you're organizing your money. Now, don't get me wrong. We all know from any very successful business, anybody can fall into a financial hardship. So if you have bad credit, that does not mean you're not good with finances. Some people a bunch of people went bankrupt. Think about how many large corporations have gone bankrupt and have had to bounce back, and they're now multi-billion-dollar companies with multi-billion-dollar CEOs. So never count yourself out just because you have a low credit score. Everybody's story is different, right? Anybody can fall into a hardship for a year, 2 years, and bounce back, right? But you got to understand the number of new accounts. When you constantly out there and you opening new credit cards, that's saying, listen, I got this whole finance thing under control. I already got 6 credit cards over here. I'm paying these guys back $10,000 limit apiece. I know how to borrow and pay them back, and I want to open up 4 more because I've somewhat, I wouldn't say you mastered your finances, but you're at you're heading towards the pinnacle of being able to do that once you start getting into this area. And those are the people that you start seeing with the 750 plus, 800 plus credit scores. Is these people that actually have, because you're not going to get 850 credit score with just four accounts, 5 accounts. You have to be that person that's borrowing using different types of financing. You got to be good at it. It takes time, right? That's why we're going through this. And then your last one is the type of credit you use, which goes back into my last point. You have to be able to borrow different type of financing. So you got your installment loans, you got your revolving accounts, you got your charge cards, you got real estate loans, you got auto loans. So these are different types of credit that you can get from banks. So when you start to utilize these different ways of borrowing, that's when the banks can see you're pretty good with your money and you know what you're doing. So what we're gonna do is we got to make sure that we understand what this breakdown is here, because a lot of us want a 750 credit score and we don't really know what it takes. We think it's just on-time payments and keeping my utilization low. No, you want to be able to borrow, you got to be able to not only pay on time, but pay enough to keep that utilization low. And not just keep the utilization low, but be able to borrow consistently while keeping the utilization low over a long period of time. And not just those 3 things, but continuing to pay your old accounts with utilization on them that you're paying back while opening new accounts that you're doing the same thing on. And not only those 4 things, but actually being able to utilize different types of credit to show you actually understand how to utilize credit, funding, and financing, right? Learning how to use equity in the home or equity in the car, credit cards, lines of credit. I mean, there's so many different types of extensions of credit, but that's what we have to start learning how to do, y'all. Learning how to actually use credit, learning how it breaks down. But like I've always told y'all from the beginning, it starts with the budget. This is very hard to do if you're just borrowing blindly and you don't have the money to pay these people back. Gotta have the money to pay them back, because remember, you can pay on time all day with minimums, but if you ain't paying enough, you ain't gonna get nowhere.